The cargo bay doors of the transport ship hissed open above the dense canopy of 442B. Captain clicked his mandibles in irritation as he stared down at the unconscious form of the young dragon sprawled across the metal floor. The creature's iridescent scales, once probably magnificent shades of deep emerald and gold, had dulled to a sickly gray-green. Its left wing hung at an unnatural angle, clearly broken in multiple places, while dark blood seeped from numerous wounds across its hide. "Should have listened when the buyers said no damaged goods," muttered his second-in-command, a spider-like arachnoid whose 8 eyes reflected the dim cargo bay lighting. "Now we're stuck with worthless merchandise." His 4 arms gestured dismissively. The dragon trade had been profitable for cycles, supplying wealthy collectors across the galaxy with these rare and beautiful creatures. But this particular specimen had fought back during capture, damaging itself so severely that no respectable buyer would even consider it. The medical costs alone would exceed any potential profit. "Dump it," he ordered coldly. "Let the primitive humans below deal with it. If it survives, maybe it will serve as a lesson to the locals about staying out of galactic affairs." The massive creature, barely larger than a human shuttle craft but still impressive in its own right, tumbled through the atmosphere. Its broken wing fluttered uselessly as gravity claimed it, sending the dragon crashing through the thick branches of the forest that surrounded New Haven Colony. The impact shook the ground and sent a flock of local birds screeching into the orange sky. Dr. Sarah was 3 hours into her morning botanical survey when her tablet registered the seismic disturbance. The atmospheric entry had been detected by the colony's early warning systems, but initial scans showed no signs of a spacecraft or debris field. Still, protocol demanded investigation of any unexplained impacts, especially this close to the settlement. She made her way through the familiar forest paths, her boots crunching on the carpet of fallen leaves that the colonists had nicknamed amber drops for their golden color. New Haven had been her home for 8 years now, ever since she'd volunteered for the terraforming support mission that was gradually making this world more hospitable for human life. The work was slow and methodical, requiring careful study of every ecosystem component, but Sarah loved the challenge of understanding how life adapted and thrived in alien environments. The crash site was impossible to miss. A path of broken trees and torn earth led to a crater roughly 30 meters across, where something large had come to rest. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she caught her first glimpse of what lay at the bottom of the depression. It was definitely alive, though barely. The creature's breathing was shallow and labored, each exhale producing a small puff of what looked like steam in the cool morning air. Its scales, even dulled by injury and stress, were unlike anything in the colony's xenobiology databases. This was clearly an off-world species, and probably an intelligent one based on the sophisticated bone structure visible beneath torn hide. Sarah activated her emergency beacon immediately, knowing that Dr. Martinez and the rest of the medical team would need to see this. But even as she called for help, she was already scrambling down into the crater, her scientific training warring with basic human compassion. The creature was suffering, and every instinct she possessed demanded that she do something to help. "Easy there," she whispered, approaching slowly with her hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon's eyes opened at the sound of her voice. They were the color of liquid amber, flecked with gold, and held an intelligence that made Sarah's heart skip. This wasn't just some animal. This was a person, trapped in a form that most humans would find frightening, but that Sarah found beautiful. She began a careful examination, her medical scanner recording data while her hands gently probed for obvious injuries. The broken wing was the most serious visible damage, but internal scans revealed signs of dehydration, malnutrition, and what looked like systematic abuse. Whoever had done this had treated a sentient being as nothing more than cargo. "Doctor, what's your status?" The voice of colony administrator crackled through her comm unit. "I found a critically injured intelligent being," she replied, never taking her eyes off the dragon. "Possibly extraterrestrial origin, definitely in need of immediate medical attention. The injuries appear consistent with captivity and abuse." There was a long pause before responded. "Understood. Dr. Martinez is en route with a full medical team. Do not attempt to move the creature until we can assess the situation properly." But Sarah was already moving, spreading her emergency shelter over the dragon to provide some protection from the elements. The creature's breathing seemed to ease slightly with the shelter in place, and she thought she saw a flicker of gratitude in those remarkable eyes. Dr. Carlos Martinez arrived within the hour, leading a team of medics and engineers equipped with portable medical equipment and a hover stretcher designed for large cargo. His expression shifted from skepticism to wonder as he got his first close look at their patient. "Incredible," he breathed, running his medical scanner over the dragon's form. "The bone density is remarkable, and these scales appear to have natural regenerative properties. The wing structure suggests a flight-capable species, though obviously that's compromised right now." Working together, the medical team carefully moved the dragon onto the hover stretcher, taking extreme care with the damaged wing. The creature remained conscious throughout the process, watching the humans with those intelligent eyes, but offering no resistance. If anything, it seemed to understand that these strange beings were trying to help. The journey back to New Haven's medical facility was tense. The dragon's vital signs fluctuated wildly, and twice Dr. Martinez had to administer emergency stimulants to keep it stable. Sarah found herself holding the creature's massive head in her lap, stroking the scales along its neck and whispering reassurances she hoped it could understand. "We're going to take care of you," she promised. "Whatever happened before, you're safe now." The medical bay at New Haven had been designed to handle anything from minor injuries to full surgical procedures, but it had never hosted a patient quite like this one. The dragon barely fit on the largest examination table, its tail curving around to rest on a secondary platform while its uninjured wing draped over the side. Dr. Martinez began with detailed scans, mapping every bone and organ while Sarah monitored vital signs. The internal damage was extensive but not life-threatening, assuming they could stabilize the creature and provide proper nutrition. The wing, however, was a more complex problem. "Multiple fractures in the wing membrane," Martinez reported, highlighting the damaged areas on his display. "3 broken bones in the wing structure itself and significant muscle damage. This wasn't accidental, someone did this deliberately." Sarah felt a surge of anger at the thought of anyone causing such suffering intentionally, but she forced herself to focus on the medical challenges ahead. Can it be repaired? With time and the right approach, possibly. The bone structure is remarkably similar to terrestrial bird anatomy, just scaled up significantly. The membrane tissue shows signs of natural regenerative capabilities, but it will need support to heal properly. Colony administrator arrived as they were completing the initial assessment, his expression grave. "I've been in contact with Colonial Command," he reported. "Officially, we're authorized to provide humanitarian aid to any sentient being in distress. Unofficially, they're very interested in learning more about our patient here." The dragon's head turned toward as he spoke, those amber eyes tracking the conversation with obvious intelligence. Sarah noticed the subtle shift in the creature's posture and leaned closer. "You understand us, don't you?" she asked softly. The dragon blinked once, slowly and deliberately. It was a small gesture, but unmistakably intentional. Dr. Martinez looked up from his medical readings. "Neural activity suggests high intelligence, possibly on par with human cognitive function. If it does understand our language, that's going to make treatment significantly easier." Over the following hours, the medical team worked to stabilize their patient. IV lines provided essential fluids and nutrients, while carefully administered medications helped manage pain and prevent infection. The dragon accepted all treatments without resistance, seeming to understand that the humans were helping despite the discomfort of medical procedures. As the local sun set outside the medical bay windows, Sarah found herself assigned to the first watch. The dragon appeared to be resting, its breathing steady and strong, but she knew that the next few days would be critical. The creature's body was fighting to heal from extensive trauma, and there was no guarantee that their efforts would be enough. She settled into a chair beside the examination table, close enough to monitor the patient, but far enough away to avoid crowding. The dragon's eyes opened as she sat down, fixing on her face with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. "My name is Sarah," she said quietly, pointing to herself. "Sarah." The dragon made a sound deep in its throat, not quite a growl, but clearly an attempt at communication. Its mouth opened slightly, revealing rows of sharp teeth, but somehow Sarah wasn't frightened. There was something gentle about this creature, despite its fearsome appearance. "Can you tell me your name?" she asked, knowing the question was probably pointless but hopping anyway. The dragon tried to speak, producing a series of sounds that were clearly intentional but incomprehensible to human ears. After several attempts, it stopped and looked frustrated, its tail lashing slightly against the table. "It's okay," Sarah assured it. "We'll figure out how to communicate. These things take time." As if responding to her words, the dragon's posture relaxed. Its breathing deepened, and Sarah realized it was finally allowing itself to truly rest, probably for the first time since its capture. The trust implied in that simple action moved her more than she'd expected. She spent the rest of the night watching over her patient, occasionally checking vital signs, but mostly just being present. Outside, the sounds of New Haven's night shift carried on as normal, but inside the medical bay, something extraordinary was beginning. A bond was forming between two very different species, built on compassion and mutual respect. Dr. Martinez returned at dawn to find both Sarah and the dragon sleeping peacefully, the woman's hand resting gently on the creature's neck. The vital sign monitors showed the strongest readings yet, suggesting that whatever was happening between human and dragon was having a positive therapeutic effect. As the morning sun streamed through the windows, the dragon's eyes opened to meet Sarah's waking gaze. For just a moment, she could have sworn she saw something like gratitude there, mixed with hope for what tomorrow might bring. 3 days had passed since the dragon's arrival at New Haven Colony, and Dr. Sarah had barely left the medical bay. The creature's recovery was progressing faster than anyone had expected, but Sarah knew that physical healing was only part of the challenge they faced. The dragon's psychological trauma ran deep, evidenced by its startled reactions to sudden movements and the way it tracked every person who entered the room. Dr. Martinez had installed a translation matrix, a sophisticated AI system designed to analyze vocal patterns and attempt basic communication with unknown species. The results were promising but frustrating. The dragon clearly understood human speech far better than humans could understand its vocalizations, creating a one-sided conversation that left both species struggling to bridge the gap. "Its name appears to be something approximating," Dr. Martinez reported during the morning briefing. "At least, that's the closest our translation software can manage. The actual sound involves harmonic frequencies that human vocal cords can't reproduce." Sarah nodded, grateful to finally have something to call their patient other than the dragon. She'd been spending most of her time in the medical bay, partly to monitor progress, but increasingly because she felt a responsibility to help the creature feel less alone in a world of strange beings speaking an unfamiliar language. The breakthrough in their communication came unexpectedly. Sarah had been explaining her daily routine of checking wing mobility when the dragon suddenly lifted its uninjured wing and pointed toward her tablet computer. The gesture was so unmistakably human-like that Sarah almost laughed. "You want to see this?" she asked, holding up the device. Nodded, another startlingly human gesture that sent excitement through the medical team. Sarah activated the tablet's display, showing the detailed medical scans of its wing structure. The dragon's eyes widened as it studied the images, occasionally making soft sounds that the translation matrix interpreted as questions. "This is your wing bone," Sarah explained, highlighting the relevant areas. "See these fractures? We can fix them, but it will take time." What happened next amazed everyone present. Extended one clawed finger and began touching the screen, zooming in on specific areas and examining the damage with the intensity of a medical professional reviewing a difficult case. The dragon understood anatomy, possibly better than the human doctors treating it. Dr. Martinez leaned forward eagerly. "Do your people have medical knowledge?" The dragon looked up from the tablet and nodded emphatically, then began a complex series of gestures pointing to various parts of its body. The translation matrix struggled with the accompanying vocalizations, but the meaning was clear, was trying to explain aspects of dragon physiology that humans didn't understand. "It's trying to help us help it," Sarah realized. "Show us what we're doing wrong." What followed was an extraordinary collaboration. Using the tablet's drawing function, began sketching diagrams that showed the correct way to align the wing bones for optimal healing. The dragon's understanding of its own anatomy was far more detailed than human medical scanners could provide, revealing muscle groups and neural pathways that didn't show up on conventional scans. Dr. Martinez worked with increasing excitement as guided them through proper treatment protocols. The dragon's suggestions led to adjustments in medication dosages, changes in physical therapy approaches, and insights into nutritional requirements that human science had missed entirely. The mineral content in its scales requires specific trace elements, Dr. Martinez explained to Colony Administrator. Elements we don't have in our standard medical supplies, but has been able to identify local plants that contain what it needs. The collaborative medical approach produced remarkable results. Swing bones began healing faster than projected, while the membrane tissue showed signs of regeneration that exceeded all expectations. More importantly, the dragon's psychological state improved dramatically as it became an active participant in its own recovery rather than a passive patient. Sarah found herself spending hours each day working on communication exercises. The dragon's intelligence was formidable, and it seemed determined to master human language as quickly as possible. Within a week, could understand complex conversations and respond with gestures, drawings, and carefully modulated sounds that the translation matrix could interpret. "Humans different," came through the translation matrix one afternoon as Sarah adjusted swing supports. "Not like others who took me." "What were the others like?" Sarah asked gently, though she dreaded the answer. His response came slowly, with obvious difficulty. The translation matrix struggled with concepts that had no human equivalent, but gradually a picture emerged of a universe where sentient beings were treated as commodities, where intelligence and emotion were irrelevant compared to profit margins. "Dragons valuable for scales, for fire, for strength," the translation conveyed. "Sold to collectors, to fighters, to those who want pretty creatures that cannot escape." Sarah felt sick at the casual cruelty described, but she forced herself to listen as the dragon continued. "They broke wings so I could not fly away. Said damaged goods worth less, so dump on primitive world where no one would care." "They were wrong about that," Sarah said firmly. "We care. Every intelligent being deserves freedom and respect." Tilted its head, studying Sarah's face with those remarkable amber eyes. "Why? Humans gain nothing from helping dragon." The question struck Sarah as fundamentally alien. She struggled to explain concepts that seemed obvious to human thinking, but apparently weren't universal truths. "Because it's right," she said finally. "Because you're in pain and we can help. Because you're intelligent and aware, and that makes you valuable in ways that have nothing to do with profit." The dragon was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. When it spoke again, its voice carried a note of wonder that the translation matrix couldn't quite capture. "Humans strange species," it said. "Help strangers for no gain, care for creatures different from themselves. Perhaps this is why humans survive on worlds others cannot." That evening, Dr. Martinez made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing latest scans, he noticed something unusual in the neural activity patterns. "Sarah, you need to see this," he called urgently. The brain scans showed activity levels that far exceeded previous readings. More significantly, the patterns suggested that cognitive abilities were actually increasing during recovery. The dragon wasn't just healing from physical trauma, it was experiencing some kind of mental enhancement. "This doesn't make sense," Dr. Martinez muttered, comparing readings from different days. "Neural tissue doesn't just grow new connections this rapidly, especially not in response to medical treatment." Sarah studied the data with growing excitement. What if it's not just the medical treatment? What if the interaction with humans is somehow stimulating neural development? They took their findings too, who listened intently as they explained their observations. The dragon's response surprised them. "Yes," came through the translation matrix. "Dragons grow stronger when bonded with worthy partners. Physical healing brings mental expansion. But this only happens with species that show true kinship." "Kinship?" Sarah asked. Gestured toward the humans gathered around its bed. "Pack bond, family feeling. Dragons recognize this in humans. Rare in galaxy, most species think only of self or own kind." Dr. Martinez leaned forward eagerly. "Are you saying that this neural enhancement is the result of an emotional connection?" "Dragons evolved alongside pack species explained. We grow stronger when we find true companions, but companions must be worthy, brave, loyal, protective of others. Humans show these traits." The implications were staggering. They weren't just treating an injured alien. They were participating in some kind of bonding process that could enhance both dragon and human capabilities. The medical readings supported this theory, showing that Sarah's own neural activity had increased during her extended time with. Colony administrator arrived the next morning with news that complicated their growing understanding. I've received communications from 3 different alien factions claiming ownership of our patient, he reported grimly. They want returned immediately, along with compensation for theft of valuable property. Sarah felt a surge of protective anger. Isn't property, and these are probably the same people who abused and abandoned him. Her corrected gently. Dragon gender concepts translate poorly, but closest human term is her. Sarah blinked, realizing she'd been unconsciously assuming masculine pronouns. I'm sorry, I should have asked. The dragon made a sound that the translation matrix interpreted as amusement. Humans try to be respectful, this also rare in Galaxy. Looked uncomfortable with the entire situation. Legal status aside, we may not have a choice. These aren't requests, they're demands backed by military force. One faction is already en route to 442B. His reaction was immediate and alarming. Her vital signs spiked, wing membranes flaring despite the healing injuries, and a low sound emerged from her throat that needed no translation. It was pure terror. They cannot take me back, she managed through the translation matrix. Will be punishment for bonding with humans, will be sold to worse masters who know how to prevent escape. Sarah moved instinctively to side, placing a protective hand on the dragon's neck. They're not taking you anywhere. This is human space, and you're under our protection. But what can humans do against galactic powers? Asked, though her panic seemed to ease at Sarah's touch. Dragons strong, but humans appear small and weak. Dr. Martinez smiled grimly. Appearances can be deceiving. Humans have survived and thrived in a hostile galaxy precisely because we're good at protecting things we care about. As if summoned by his words, a series of alerts began chiming throughout the colony. Long-range sensors had detected multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The aliens had arrived, and they were coming to reclaim what they considered their stolen property. But what they would find at New Haven Colony would be very different from what they expected. They had abandoned a broken, traumatized dragon on a world they considered primitive and insignificant. They were about to discover what happened when humans decided to protect one of their own. The alarm klaxons echoed through New Haven Colony as Administrator convened an emergency council meeting. Representatives from every department gathered in the main conference room, their faces grim as they reviewed the sensor data streaming across the central display. 5 ships had entered the system, their configurations unknown, but their intentions clear from the aggressive formation they maintained. Sarah sat beside a mobile medical bed, which had been brought to the conference room so the dragon could participate in discussions about her own fate. The past week had brought remarkable progress in its recovery, but more importantly, it had demonstrated capabilities that no one had anticipated. Show them what you showed me this morning, Sarah encouraged gently. Nodded and extended her partially healed wing toward the holographic display showing the approaching ships. As the colonists watched in amazement, her scales began to shimmer with an inner light, and suddenly the display filled with detailed technical specifications for each vessel. How is she doing that? Chief Engineer whispered. Dragon senses extend beyond human understanding, explained through the translation matrix, her voice carrying newfound confidence. Can feel electromagnetic signatures, analyze material compositions, detect energy patterns from great distances. Bonding with humans has enhanced these abilities. The information provided was invaluable. The lead ship belonged to the Syndicate, the same aliens who had originally dumped her on the planet. The other 4 vessels represented different factions, each claiming ownership rights to the Dragon. More disturbing, the sensor analysis revealed that all 5 ships carried weapons capable of devastating the colony. They expect easy retrieval, continued, her mental voice carrying notes of anger that the translation matrix couldn't fully convey. Primitive human settlement cannot resist galactic powers. This is their mistake. Dr. Martinez leaned forward intently. What kind of mistake? What showed them next changed everything the colonists thought they knew about their situation. The dragon's enhanced senses had detected something that human sensors had missed entirely. a vast network of mineral deposits beneath New Haven colony containing elements that were incredibly rare throughout the galaxy. These materials are what give dragon scales their unique properties, explained. Presence of such minerals in your soil explains why my healing has progressed beyond normal limits, but also means your world is valuable beyond measure. Administrator studied the geological data with growing understanding. They didn't dump you here randomly, they knew about the deposits. Suspected but could not confirm without dragon senses to analyze, confirmed. Planned to return after I died to claim mining rights to empty world. Finding humans here was unexpected complication. The implications hit the room like a physical blow. The aliens hadn't just abandoned. They had essentially used her as a geological survey tool, expecting her death to provide them with confirmation of the planet's value while removing any inconvenient witnesses to their discovery. "But we saved you," Sarah said, understanding dawning in her voice. "And now you're bonded with us." His response carried a note that might have been draconic laughter. "Yes, and bonded dragon with enhanced abilities changes equation significantly. Syndicate arrives expecting to collect dying creature and claim empty world. Instead finds thriving dragon-human partnership on planet rich with strategic resources." Chief Engineer was studying the mineral analysis with obvious excitement. "Sarah, if these readings are accurate, we're sitting on enough rare Earth elements to supply half the galaxy's advanced technology needs. Which makes us either very valuable allies or very dangerous enemies," observed grimly. The next few hours saw frantic preparation throughout the colony. While the diplomatic team worked on formal responses to the alien demands, the engineering department began implementing suggestions that came from an unexpected source, herself. "Dragons understand technology differently than humans," she explained, as she guided them through modifications to the colony's defensive systems. "You build for efficiency and function. Dragons see patterns, harmonies, ways to make technology sing in harmony with natural forces." The changes suggested seemed almost mystical, involving precise adjustments to power flow patterns and electromagnetic field alignments. But when Chief Engineer tested the modified systems, the results were unprecedented. Power efficiency increased by 40%, sensor range doubled, and the defensive shields showed strength ratings that exceeded theoretical maximums for their power input. "It's like she's teaching our technology to work the way dragon technology would," reported in amazement. "The machines are responding as if they're alive." Dr. Martinez was documenting everything, recognizing that they were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. "This isn't just human-dragon cooperation," he observed. "This is genuine fusion of two completely different approaches to science and technology." Sarah watched work with growing awe. The dragon's recovery had progressed beyond simple healing. Her bond with the humans seemed to be unlocking capabilities that neither species possessed alone. When touched the colony's main computer system, her scales glowed softly, and the entire network responded with increased processing speed and expanded memory capacity. "The neural enhancement we observed," Dr. Martinez murmured. "It's not limited to biological systems, is somehow extending her consciousness into our technology." "Not extending," corrected. "Teaching, showing your machines how to think more like living beings. In return, human technology teaches dragon mind new ways of processing information. Both species grow stronger together." The first test of their enhanced capabilities came sooner than expected. The alien ships had accelerated their approach, clearly unwilling to wait for formal negotiations. Long-range communications crackled with demands and threats delivered in multiple languages, all carrying the same message: surrender the dragon or face the consequences. Administrator stood in the colony's communication center, flanked by Sarah, and the dragon had insisted on being present for any negotiations, her enhanced senses providing real-time analysis of the alien responses. "This is Colony Administrator of New Haven," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We have received your demands regarding the dragon known as. I am authorized to inform you that is now a citizen of this colony, granted full protection under human colonial law." The response was immediate and multilingual outrage. Captain's voice dominated the communications channel, his translation carrying clear tones of disbelief and fury. "Primitive humans cannot grant citizenship to valuable cargo," he transmitted. Dragon is property of Syndicate. Return immediately or face consequences of theft. Leaned forward toward the communication array, her scales shimmering with inner light. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that somehow bypassed the translation matrix entirely, speaking directly to the minds of everyone listening. "I am of New Haven Colony," she declared, and every person present could feel the power behind her words. "I choose my own fate, bound to those who showed mercy when others showed only cruelty. Come and try to reclaim what was never yours to own." The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. When the aliens resumed communications, their voices carried a note of uncertainty that hadn't been present before. "Impossible," came a new voice, speaking for one of the other factions. "Dragons cannot achieve full conscious projection without proper bonding protocols. Humans lack the neural complexity for true partnership." Dr. Martinez smiled grimly as he activated the colony's enhanced sensor array. "Perhaps you should update your databases regarding human neural complexity." What the aliens saw on their screens shattered their preconceptions about both humans and dragons. The sensor readings showed not one consciousness, but a merged network of human and dragon minds working in perfect harmony. Its enhanced abilities were amplified by human technological innovation, while human creativity was expanded by draconic intuitive understanding of natural forces. "This is impossible," Captain repeated, but his voice now carried fear instead of anger. "Bonding of this depth requires cycles of preparation, genetic compatibility testing, neural interface calibration. Cannot happen spontaneously." Sarah stepped forward, placing her hand on his neck in a gesture that had become natural over the past weeks. "Maybe it can't happen with species that view intelligence as a commodity to be bought and sold, but it happens easily enough between species that recognize each other as equals." The readings that flooded the alien ship's sensors told the story clearly. The human-dragon bond wasn't just emotional or psychological, it was creating genuine enhancement of both species' capabilities. Its dragon abilities were amplified beyond anything in galactic records, while the humans showed cognitive improvements that placed them far above baseline for their species. "You see now why they fear us," transmitted directly to the alien ships, her voice carrying across space without need for technological amplification. "Not because we are strong individually, but because we make each other stronger, because we choose cooperation over domination." Chief Engineer was monitoring power systems throughout the colony, watching in fascination as presence continued to enhance every technological system she touched. "The power grid is operating at 130% of theoretical capacity," he reported, "and it's stable, more stable than it's ever been." The enhancements weren't limited to technology. Dr. Martinez had been conducting ongoing medical scans of the human colonists, documenting improvements in cognitive function, physical coordination, and even sensory acuity. The dragon's presence was somehow upgrading human biological systems, just as human technology was expanding its natural abilities. "It's symbiosis on a level we've never seen before," he explained to the gathering crowd of colonists. "Every human in the colony is becoming more than they were, while is developing capabilities that exceed normal dragon parameters." The alien ships had maintained their aggressive formation, but their communications had shifted from demands to increasingly urgent conferences among themselves. Clearly, what they had found at New Haven Colony was far different from their expectations. "They're scared," Sarah realized, watching the tactical display as the alien ships began spreading into a wider formation. They came expecting to find a dying dragon and a defenseless human settlement. Instead, they're facing something they've never encountered before. His mental voice carried satisfaction mixed with anticipation. "Fear makes beings do foolish things. They will either retreat and report to their superiors, or they will attempt to destroy what they cannot control. Either choice will teach them the true meaning of human determination." As if responding to her words, the lead ship broke formation and began an attack run toward the colony. The others followed suit, their weapons charging with energy signatures that would have been devastating to an unprotected settlement. But New Haven Colony was no longer unprotected, and its defenders were no longer merely human. As the alien weapons fired, something extraordinary rose to meet them, a fusion of human ingenuity and dragon power that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible when two worthy species chose cooperation over conquest. The first plasma bolts from the ships cut through New Haven's atmosphere like falling stars, their energy signatures capable of reducing city blocks to molten slag. Every colonist should have been running for the emergency shelters, but instead they stood transfixed as something impossible unfolded before their eyes. Rose from her medical bed, her partially healed wings spreading wide as power coursed through her scales. The dragon's form seemed to shimmer and expand, not growing physically larger but somehow becoming more present, more real than everything around her. When she spoke, her voice resonated through every communication device in the colony simultaneously. "Sarah," she said, extending one clawed hand toward the human woman who had become her closest companion. "Are you ready to see what humans and dragons can accomplish together?" Without hesitation, Sarah took's hand. The moment their skin touched, light exploded through the colony's systems. Every screen, every display, every technological device began glowing with the same inner radiance that emanated from scales. "Impossible," Chief Engineer whispered as his instruments showed power readings that every law of physics he understood. "The entire grid is operating at 300% capacity, but there's no overload, no system strain. It's like the machines have become something more than mechanical." The plasma bolts that should have devastated New Haven struck an invisible barrier 50 meters above the colony's highest structures. Instead of destroying buildings and killing colonists, the alien weapon's energy was absorbed and redirected, flowing through the colony's enhanced power grid like water through carefully designed channels. Captain's voice crackled over the communication array, filled with disbelief and growing terror. "Defensive shields are impossible at this power level. Colonial settlements lack the infrastructure for planetary-class protection." Dr. Martinez was recording everything, his scientific mind struggling to process readings that exceeded his understanding of what was possible. "Sarah, your neural activity is off the charts. Whatever's happening between you and it's creating capabilities that neither species should possess individually." But Sarah barely heard him. Through her connection with, she could perceive the colony as the dragon did, not as separate buildings and systems, but as a living organism with technological organs and electronic nervous systems. Every computer, every power relay, every communication device had become an extension of their shared consciousness. The human's fear's mental voice carried a note of sadness as she felt the aliens panic through their ship transmissions. "They cannot understand cooperation without domination, cannot conceive of growth without conquest." The second wave of alien attacks came from all 5 ships simultaneously, their combined firepower enough to crack a moon's surface. But the energy barrier that protected New Haven had evolved beyond simple deflection. The colony's enhanced systems analyzed each incoming weapon, adapted to its specific frequency, and turned the aliens' own power against them. Plasma bolts became streams of raw energy that fed the colony's ever-growing capabilities. Particle beams were converted into data streams that expanded the computational capacity of every electronic device. Gravitational weapons designed to crush buildings instead enhanced the structural integrity of everything they touched. "By the void," came a transmission from one of the alien ships. "The humans are feeding on our weapons' fire. How is this possible?" Administrator stepped forward, his voice calm despite the unprecedented situation unfolding around him. "Perhaps because we learned something your species never did, that true strength comes from unity, not domination." Through the colony's enhanced sensor array, now expanded far beyond its original capabilities, the defenders could perceive the alien ships with perfect clarity. Dragon senses, amplified by human technology and shared through their growing network, revealed not just the ship's technical specifications, but the emotional states of their crews. "They are afraid," observed, her consciousness touching the minds of the alien attackers. "Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of losing control over systems they have dominated for generations. This fear makes them predictable." Sarah found herself understanding concepts that should have been beyond human comprehension. Through her bond with, she could feel the flow of energy between the ships, see the patterns of their tactical formations, predict their next moves with uncanny accuracy. "The lead ship is preparing to retreat," she announced, somehow certain of her assessment. "But the others want to continue the attack. They're arguing among themselves." The alien communications confirmed her observation. Multiple voices clashed across the radio frequencies as the five factions struggled to decide between retreat and escalation. The Syndicate, led by Captain, advocated for withdrawal and requesting reinforcements. The other groups, their greed overcoming their caution, pushed for continued assault. Valuable resources cannot be abandoned to primitive species, insisted the commander of a crystalline ship that resembled a massive geode. Dragon bonding with humans is temporary aberration. Sustained bombardment will break their connection. His response was immediate and devastating. Her consciousness, now networked through every electronic device in the colony, reached out across space and touched the alien ship's computer systems. Instead of attacking or damaging them, she simply introduced herself. "Greetings," her mental voice spoke directly through their ship's communication arrays. "I am, citizen of New Haven Colony, bonded companion of the human species. You have attacked my home and threatened my chosen family. This cannot be permitted." The effect on the alien crews was immediate and profound. None of their species had ever experienced direct mind-to-mind contact with a dragon, and certainly not one whose consciousness had been expanded through human technological enhancement. The sheer scope of awareness overwhelmed their mental defenses. "Impossible," Captain gasped, his ship's instruments showing energy readings that explanation. "Dragons cannot project across vacuum without physical contact, cannot interface with alien technology without compatibility protocols." Dr. Martinez was documenting frantically, recognizing that they were witnessing the emergence of capabilities that would reshape galactic civilization. "How are you doing this?" "Human technology teaches dragon mind new pathways for consciousness projection," she explained, while simultaneously monitoring all 5 alien ships. "Dragon intuition shows human machines how to transcend normal limitations. Together, we become more than either species imagined possible." The third wave of attacks never came. As enhanced consciousness made contact with the alien ships, something unexpected happened. Instead of fear or anger, she projected understanding and compassion, allowing the attackers to experience the genuine care and respect that humans had shown during her recovery. "Feel what I felt," she transmitted directly to their minds. "Understand what it means to be valued for who you are rather than what you can provide. Experience the strength that comes from willing cooperation instead of forced submission." The psychological impact was immediate and overwhelming. The alien crews, accustomed to relationships based on power hierarchies and exploitation, suddenly found themselves experiencing genuine empathy and mutual respect. For most of them, it was the first time in their lives they had felt such emotions. Captain's ship was the first to power down its weapons, his voice shaking as he transmitted to the colony. This is not natural. Species do not form bonds of this depth without careful genetic matching and extensive preparation." Sarah felt compelled to respond, her own consciousness now expanded enough to speak directly to the alien minds. "Maybe that's because your species have been thinking about bonding all wrong. You try to engineer it, control it, make it serve your purposes. But real connections happen when beings choose to trust each other despite their differences." The readings from the alien ships showed crews in various states of psychological shock. They had come expecting easy conquest, and instead encountered a form of relationship that challenged their fundamental understanding of how intelligent species interacted. "The humans offer no demands," observed the commander of a bioship whose living hull pulsed with confused bioluminescence. "They do not seek to dominate or convert, they simply accept us as we are." Chief Engineer was monitoring the colony's systems, amazed to find that their capabilities continued to expand even as the immediate threat diminished. "Every system is still improving," he reported. "It's like the human-dragon bond is creating a cascade effect, upgrading everything it touches." But the most significant change wasn't technological, it was social. The colonists who had been connected to this expanding network found their own empathetic abilities enhanced. They could sense the emotional states of the alien crews, feel their confusion and fear and growing wonder as they experienced genuine compassion for the first time. "They're not evil," Sarah realized, her enhanced perception allowing her to understand the aliens' psychological profiles. "They're trapped in systems that taught them competition and exploitation were the only paths to survival. They've never had the chance to experience anything else." His mental voice carried deep sadness as she surveyed the galaxy through the alien's memories. So many species, so much suffering caused by beings who never learned there were other ways to live. Perhaps this is why dragons and humans were meant to find each other. The transformation of the confrontation from battle to communication represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of conquest or retreat, the situation evolved into an impromptu first contact scenario where humans and dragon demonstrated possibilities that none of the attacking species had ever imagined. "Colony of New Haven," came a trembling transmission from the crystalline ship. We request permission to approach peacefully. Our crew wishes to understand how you achieved this form of cooperation." Administrator looked to Sarah, and recognizing that the decision belonged to them as much as to him. The dragon and human exchanged a look that needed no translation, their bond communicating volumes in an instant. "Permission granted," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the same enhanced harmonics that characterized speech. "Come and see what's possible when species choose cooperation over conquest." As the alien ships adjusted their approach patterns, their weapons powered down, and their postures shifted from aggressive to curious, everyone at New Haven Colony realized they were witnessing something that would change the galaxy forever. The abandoned dragon with the broken wing had become the catalyst for a new form of civilization, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than imposed dominance. But the real test was yet to come, as word of what happened at New Haven would inevitably reach other powers throughout the galaxy. Some would be inspired by what humans and dragons could accomplish together. Others would see it as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it could spread. The battle for New Haven was over, but the larger struggle for a new kind of galactic civilization was just beginning. 6 months after the first alien ships had arrived at New Haven Colony, the small settlement had transformed into something that every category in galactic civilization databases. What had begun as a standard terraforming outpost now housed representatives from over 30 different species, all drawn by reports of the impossible partnership between humans and dragons. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the new Cultural Exchange Center, watching as a delegation of diplomats emerged from their bioship to meet with for the first time. The dragon had grown significantly during her time at New Haven, not just in size, but in presence and capability. Her scales now shimmered with constant inner light, and her consciousness could span star systems when networked through the colony's exponentially enhanced technology. "They're frightened," observed, her mental voice carrying gentle amusement as she monitored the approaching delegation. "Their entire social structure is based on rigid hierarchies and predetermined roles. The concept of voluntary cooperation between equals is literally incomprehensible to them." Dr. Martinez approached with his latest report, his expression showing the wonder that had become permanent since documenting the ongoing changes at New Haven. "The neural enhancement effects are accelerating," he announced. "Every human in the colony now shows cognitive capabilities that exceed baseline by at least 40%. More significantly, we're developing new forms of sensory perception that shouldn't be possible for our species." It was true. Sarah could feel the emotional states of beings throughout the colony, sense the harmonic frequencies that used for long-distance communication, and perceive technological systems as living organisms with their own forms of consciousness. The enhancement wasn't limited to mental capabilities either. Humans were showing improved physical coordination, enhanced healing rates, and resistance to diseases that would have been fatal before the bonding began. "The effects aren't limited to this colony anymore," Chief Engineer added, joining the conversation. "We're receiving reports from human settlements throughout the sector. Even humans who have never been to New Haven are showing enhanced capabilities. Whatever's happening here is spreading through some kind of quantum field effect." The implications were staggering. The human-dragon bond hadn't just created a local phenomenon, it was gradually enhancing the entire human species. Similarly, dragons throughout the galaxy were reporting unprecedented growth in their abilities, as if breakthrough was inspiring evolutionary leaps in her entire species. Captain, who had remained at New Haven as an unofficial ambassador after his worldview was shattered by first contact with genuine compassion, approached the group with obvious excitement. "The Galactic Council has finally agreed to formal recognition," he announced. "New Haven Colony will be designated as the first cooperative zone in galactic history." The designation was unprecedented. For the galaxy had been divided into territories controlled by various species, each maintaining dominance through military force or economic pressure. The idea of a zone where multiple species cooperated as equals was so foreign that the Galactic Council had needed to create entirely new legal frameworks to accommodate it. "What does that mean practically?" Administrator asked. "It means we've officially proven that alternatives to domination-based civilization are possible," Sarah realized. "We're not just a curiosity anymore, we're a working model for how species can interact without anyone being in control." The success hadn't come without challenges. 3 separate military fleets had attempted to conquer or destroy New Haven during the past months, all failing when confronted with the colony's impossible defenses. The enhanced human-dragon partnership could turn any attack into additional energy for their systems, making them stronger with each attempted assault. More difficult had been the refugees. Word of a place where species cooperated as equals had spread throughout the galaxy, bringing streams of beings fleeing oppressive regimes or exploitative relationships. New Haven's population had grown from 3,000 humans to over 50,000 beings representing dozens of species. "The interesting part," Dr. Martinez observed, "is that the enhancement effects seem to be spreading to other species as well. We've documented cognitive improvements in every sentient being who spends extended time in proximity to the human-dragon bond." Consciousness touched their minds gently, sharing images of the galaxy as she now perceived it. Through the network of enhanced technology and willing minds that had grown from New Haven, she could monitor vast regions of space, watching as other species began experimenting with cooperative relationships instead of hierarchical ones. "Change spreads like ripples through water," she observed. "Each species that learns cooperation teaches the possibility to others. The old ways of thinking lose power as new possibilities emerge." The transformation wasn't limited to political or social structures. The technological innovations emerging from human-dragon collaboration were revolutionizing entire industries. Energy systems that operated at impossible efficiency levels, faster-than-light communication networks that transmitted thoughts as easily as words, medical techniques that could heal injuries considered permanent by galactic standards, all had emerged from the fusion of human ingenuity and draconic intuition. "We've moved beyond just demonstrating that cooperation is possible," Sarah realized as she watched the delegation finally approach with obvious trepidation. "We're showing that it's actually superior to competition in every measurable way." The meeting between and the delegation, the changes sweeping through the galaxy. The insects had arrived expecting to negotiate from positions of strength and weakness, to establish dominance hierarchies and territorial boundaries. Instead, they found themselves in a conversation about mutual benefit and shared growth. "Your hive queens could develop unprecedented capabilities through voluntary association with your worker castes," explained gently, her enhanced consciousness allowing her to perceive their social structures with perfect clarity. "Imagine what your species could accomplish if every individual contributed their unique strengths instead of being limited to predetermined roles." The concept was revolutionary for a species that had maintained rigid caste systems for millions of years. But the evidence was undeniable. Other hierarchical species that had embraced cooperative models at New Haven had achieved technological and social breakthroughs that would have been impossible under their old systems. The real proof came when one of the workers, inspired by what she had observed, approached a queen caste individual as an equal rather than a subordinate. The brief moment of genuine communication between them generated a flash of enhanced awareness that both beings could feel, demonstrating that cooperation created capabilities that hierarchy suppressed. "It's happening everywhere," Chief Engineer reported as data flowed in from throughout the galaxy. "Species that were enemies for centuries are discovering they can accomplish more as partners. Economic systems based on exploitation are being replaced by networks of mutual benefit. Military alliances are transforming into cultural exchange programs." The transformation wasn't universal or immediate. Many species and civilizations clung to their traditional power structures, viewing the cooperative model as a threat to be eliminated. But even their opposition served to demonstrate the superiority of the new approach, as cooperative zones consistently outperformed hierarchical ones in every measure of success. "The old systems require constant energy to maintain dominance," observed as they watched another former military fleet arrive seeking alliance rather than conquest. Cooperation releases energy for growth and creation instead of wasting it on control and suppression. Dr. Martinez was documenting everything, recognizing that they were witnessing the emergence of a new phase in galactic evolution. The neural enhancement effects are becoming self-reinforcing, he reported. Enhanced beings naturally seek out cooperative relationships, which create more enhancement, which leads to more cooperation. We've accidentally triggered a positive feedback loop that's transforming entire civilizations. Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she contemplated how far they had come from that morning when she found a broken dragon in the forest. What had begun as a simple act of compassion had grown into a force for change that was reshaping the galaxy's understanding of what was possible between different species. "Do you think this is what was meant to happen?" she asked. "Was finding you part of some larger plan?" The dragon's response carried the wisdom that had grown from her expanded consciousness and her observation of patterns spanning star systems. "Perhaps not planned, but inevitable. Universe tends toward complexity, toward connection, toward consciousness expanding beyond individual limitations. Dragons and humans simply learned this lesson before other species." As the sun set over New Haven Colony, painting the sky in shades that no human had imagined before their senses were enhanced, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. An abandoned dragon with a broken wing had become the catalyst for transforming galactic civilization from a collection of competing hierarchies into a network of cooperative partnerships. The aliens who had forsaken had expected to find a dying creature on a worthless world. Instead, their act of cruelty had brought together two species whose combined potential exceeded anything the galaxy had ever seen. The outcome had indeed surprised everyone, but perhaps most of all, it had surprised humans and dragons themselves as they discovered what was possible when beings chose trust over fear, cooperation over competition, and love over power. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be. What had begun with one human's decision to help a suffering creature had become a revolution in consciousness that would echo through the stars for generations to come. The broken wing had healed, but more importantly, it had taught an entire galaxy how to fly.